Okay, hello everyone. So in this video, we'll be looking at an exercise where we're trying to determine whether a regular expression, so a pair of regular expressions, are equivalent. I'm realizing that I've not actually written the pair of regular expressions. So given R and S as valid regular expressions over some non-empty alphabet, the question is to determine whether the following statement is true or false, and if it's false, to provide a counterexample. So in this case, the statement is RS whole star as a regular expression is equivalent to SR whole star. Okay. So what does this really mean? What is this question actually asking? It's asking, is the language denoted or described by RS whole star exactly the same, right? Exactly the same, not a subset or a superset or whatever. Exactly the same as language denoted by SR whole star. Okay, that is the question here. So it turns out that if we look at this regular expression, these pairs of regular expressions, it does kind of seem fishy if it seems fishy if these were equivalent, right? Because order does kind of matter when it comes to regular expressions. So if you have like the pattern regular expression 1, regular expression 2, for instance, like A star, B star, then this is definitely not equivalent, right? This is definitely not equivalent to regular expression 2, regular expression 1, B star, A star, right? Why? Because, A star, B star, that's, any number of A's followed by any number of B's. B star, A star, well, that's any number of B's followed by any number of A's, right? So, I mean, those are two different, like even just the natural language, those are two different things. So this kind of feels, at least to me, when I first saw this seemed a little fishy, right? So how can we kind of try to see if we're onto something? Well, let's just maybe plug in some regular expressions. Let's think of like fairly simple regular expressions. So let's try R as maybe let's say A, and S as let's say B. Okay. So let's see, what does this give us? Well, for RS whole star, we get AB star, right? And so what is AB star? It's strings, like what does it describe? Strings that are any sequence of ABs, right? So for instance, W, AB, 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 right? Okay, what about SR star? Is that the same? Well, SR star is BA star, right? And what does BA star describe? Well, it describes strings that are any number of BAs in a row, right? So strings like BA, BA, right? And so we can already kind of see that these are not sort of equivalent regular expressions because, for instance, so it does seem like they're not equivalent regular expressions, but if we're thinking, okay, now it seems like it's false, we want to give a concrete counterexample. How would we do this? Well, for instance, um, like if these two regular expressions were equivalent, then they would they would both describe exactly the same set of strings. So a counterexample for this kind of question would be to find, so in this case, what does a counterexample mean? What does a counterexample mean? It's a string described by one regular expression, but not the other. So in this case, if I have, and here I've like set in particular R as A and S as B. So if I have this particular setting, right? So for this particular setting, a counterexample string a counterexample is, well, just a string, let's see, AB, right? Right, the string AB. Because the string AB matches with AB whole star. Why? Because, it's AB is a single AB in a row, and AB star describes strings that are any number of ABs in a row. But it does not match with BA star. And like the most immediate reason for why it doesn't match with BA star is because in my string AB, I have a B, but there's no A that comes after it. But that's that's the only way that B's can appear in strings described by BA star, right? If there's a B, then there has to be an A after it. But here there's a B and there's no A after it, right? Because no A appears after so let's use quotes. No A appears after the B in AB. Okay. Okay, so that kind of tells us that's kind of a counterexample that tells us that RS star is not equivalent to SR star. Now, an interesting additional question might be, when are these two equivalent? Right, so when is RS star equivalent to SR star? Right? So there's actually an infinite number of cases where it does hold. There's also an infinite number of cases where it doesn't hold. So that's why the statement in general is not true. But what if we asked, what's an example where this actually does hold? Well, I can be a little, cheeky and be like, well, let's just say R, and this is kind of annoying, but let's just say R is the empty string, right? Or the regular expression that denotes the empty string. And S is any regular expression, right? Well, okay, then what happens? R of S whole star. Well, that's empty string of S whole star. And this I can kind of just reduce to S whole star, right? And then S whole star, I mean, it's the same as saying, S empty string whole star, which is S R star, right? And the reason why I can do this, right? The reason why I can go from here to here is if you just think like intuitively about regular expressions and then matching patterns. If I have the regular expression S and then empty string, right? Well, what strings is this describing? Well, it's describing strings that match. So it's describing strings, W, where those strings match with S and then have an empty string at the end. But any string has any number of empty strings at the end, right? So W is the same as W empty string. So really, if W matches with S, then W will also match with S empty string, and vice versa. If W matches with S empty string, it also has to match with S, right? And so this is kind of like a cheeky example where it's like, oh, well, it could hold. I'll leave it for you, right? So I'll leave it for you. Find an example without using the empty string or also the regular expression that denotes the empty set, like that. We could have also used that. So find an example without using these two regular expressions such that the statement holds. Right? I'll leave that as an extra exercise for you. Okay. And so, but hopefully this this gives you an idea of how you could create like counterexamples in this kind of setting. It's really about finding like some particular string which is in one set and not in the other. That's how you do counterexamples in this kind of context.